Hey folks, today I would like to talk to you about what I consider to be one of the fundamental sins of white supremacy, or if I'm feeling a little spicy, whiteness as a construct. Incidentally, this is also one of the fundamental sins of conservatism. Wonder if there's a connection there. To do so, I'd like to show you some content from Steven Crowder. No, I don't mean security footage of him smoking while berating his pregnant then wife. I mean content he actually wanted you to see. For those who have mercifully avoided the internet for the past few days, earlier this week, a Wisconsin Cinnabon worker was fired after a Somali couple caught her on camera shouting racial slurs and proudly declaring herself to be a racist. This is, I think, a transparently good decision on the part of her manager. If you can feasibly become angry enough to start screaming the N-word at patrons, you are not fit to work. Certainly not in customer service. And you might think that this is sort of an optics layup for conservatives, right? They have an opportunity to look at a woman openly declaring herself to be racist and condemn that behavior. Say, look, we're nothing like that.
I am racist.
Idiot, for
And
real.
you are
You are an idiot. No,
I
I'm
am
not.
racist, and I'll say that to the whole entire world. Don't be disrespectful.
This, of course, would not change the material reality of their racist positions, enabling of open bigots and general attitude of cruelty towards racial minorities, but it would at least confuse a few liberals and take some of the heat off their back. 10 years ago, they'd have done exactly that, performatively denounce and disavow this behavior while doing nothing to purge it from their ranks. But open racism is in vogue at the moment, so they've taken a bit of a different approach. This tweet from Steven encapsulates this phenomenon well, I think. The viral Cinnabon clip is meant to look like bad white woman, innocent Somali couple. The bigger issue is why these confrontations are showing up in cities across America in the first place. This says more about importing incompatible third world cultures than it does about American racism, and that's just the truth. Now, it should go without saying that the events preceding this interaction are essentially irrelevant. No actions taken by the couple would justify this kind of behavior, so any attempt to deflect to how they caused this is little more than a petty distraction. What I find important about Crowder's tweet, however, is that that's not even what he's concerned with. To Stephen, a white woman racially harassing a black couple is inherently the fault of the black couple. He makes no attempt to place any specific blame, show evidence they'd done something wrong, which, again, wouldn't matter, because to him, their presence is a mortal sin if it prompts white people to misbehave. Some of your minds have probably already jumped there, so I'll just say it outright. This is the racial version of asking what a sexual assault victim was wearing. Crowder views the mere presence of non-white people as temptation to abuse them, thus it is their responsibility when he or his cohort give in to this temptation. Since saying that, some more of your minds have jumped to Will Hoyt's law, the idea that conservatism is based in the principle that there must always be in-groups that the law protects but does not bind, and out-groups whom the law binds but does not protect. White people are the in-group, black people the out-group. By necessity, if an altercation happens between a black person and a white person, the black person is at fault because the rules only apply in one direction. This is that fundamental sin I was talking about. White supremacy is incapable of taking responsibility for its own actions. While conservatives will spend hours preaching about personal responsibility, about how every bad thing that happens to you is your own fault, they utterly refuse to acknowledge culpability for the things they've done and allowed. And don't worry, I am fully aware this is not exclusively a Republican problem, not by a long shot. White supremacy spent obscene amounts of money locking up black men for minor and or fabricated offenses, then blamed black men for being locked up. Steven Crowder, certain that George Floyd must have been responsible for his own murder, attempted to recreate the event on himself to prove Chauvin's actions were safe. The only problem with this idea is that Crowder knew full well that they were not safe, and so he recreated the murder by having his employee place a knee on an entirely different part of his body. This right-wing pundit posted a lie-addled video justifying the murder of Breonna Taylor in much the same fashion.
Hey everybody, I have no patience for the lies that are being told about this Breonna Taylor incident in Louisville. There now are anarchists, BLM Incorporated, and Democrats that are marching in the streets trying to advocate for justice for Breonna Taylor.
The common thread here is the underlying agreement that there are two classes of people, innocent and black, and the further time has progressed, the more willing they've become to admit it. This is a video Crowder uploaded just a few days ago.
People watching this inherently know that black people in the United States, as a demographic, are much more violent. People know that.
People don't know that. They think that. Specifically, they think that because they were granted statistics by a white supremacist system that oh so conveniently reinforces its pre-existing beliefs. I'm sure we're all flabbergasted that the system, which disproportionately over-polices, arrests, and falsely convicts black men, thinks black men are the problem.
People watching this inherently know that black people in the United States, as a demographic, are much more violent. People know that. But if you start off with And why should you say that? Isn't it down to the individual? People go, like, this is useless. This is useless. And then they go, you know what? I used to say you shouldn't say the N-word, but now if that's what breaks through, fine.
This is intended directly as a defense of the racist Cinnabon worker. In Nazi fantasy land, the proud racist was simply using racial slurs as a means of getting through to no one in particular.
Two people, okay, this person has now got an F because they didn't do the check your privilege test or white guilt test or whatever it was that they were issuing at that point in time. Okay, there's one or there's two. But then when you have hundreds of thousands or millions and people know that it's a lie, and they're saying, look, I'm not saying all black people, and I'm not a racist, but there is a point in time where the person who is saying, I am not a racist, but if you keep silencing them and saying, no, I don't want to hear your views at all. I don't want to hear your views at all because you won't check your white privilege. I don't want to hear your views at all because you don't believe in reparations. I don't want to hear your views at all because you don't believe in DEI. I don't want to hear your views at all because you're studying crime statistics. The person saying, I'm not racist, but will transform to, I'm a fucking racist. How about that?
See what I mean? It's never their fault. Crowder's thesis is essentially this. If you tell white men they're racist for expressing incorrect views on racism, eventually they'll graduate from closet racists to proud racists. And there's a couple of angles worth looking at here. First of all, there's a version of this idea that's correct. Repeatedly insisting to a group of people that they fit into a certain category can, over time, lead to that group identifying with that category. The problem, then, is twofold. First, Crowder's version of events is complete horseshit. And second, you lose any sort of grace you may have been granted when you openly admit to what you're doing. There has not been an epidemic of society telling white men their voices are worthless or that they're racist simply for asking normal questions or anything of the sort. Those of you who think there has have largely been getting this information secondhand. You haven't watched society denigrate white men, you've watched political pundits tell you that's what's happening. At best, they'll often take discussions of whiteness as a construct and claim it refers to white people as individuals, though often they don't even try that hard and simply claim any discussion of racism is an attack on white men. What Crowder is describing is a phenomenon of white men telling each other that it's time to get racist, then blaming black people for this happening. And to reiterate, all plausible deniability goes out the window when you say it out loud. If you openly admit you're becoming more racist, you lose the ability to pretend it's anyone's fault but your own. Most, if not all, folks have subconscious biases as a product of the society they've been raised in, and while it is absolutely your responsibility to work to mitigate and weaken those biases, it's not inherently your fault that you were raised with them. It becomes unambiguously your fault, however, when you proudly make them into your identity. I say all of this, or more accurately, I wrote all of this, and I feel a growing frustration with myself that this is even a subject I feel the need to discuss. This conversation is so fucking pathetic, watching ongoing centuries of apartheid, stolen freedoms, and violent cruelty, and having to reassure impressionable white people that no, they are not, in fact, the victims here. It's a real hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby situation. And don't get me wrong, those impressionable white people don't fucking get it. Many of them genuinely don't comprehend just how much the world has been built for them. Like, the sociologist in me fully recognizes the factors at play here and why the blame does not solely rest upon the individuals upholding the system. It rests on the system itself, but holy shit, man, it's fucking ridiculous. And it shouldn't be surprising that that's where Crowder has ended up. In previous videos, we've watched him blame the Jews for the world's problems, and today he's cozying up to Nick Fuentes because he too knows that the current shtick just isn't enough anymore. But goddamn does it beat at your faith in humanity. The good news is that I, unlike Mr. I'm Not Racist over here, don't let my vague impressions of the world and the people in it mold me into a terrible person. Anyhows, thank you for viewing this feature. Consider pressing the dopamine buttons down below, and otherwise remember that it's okay to not be human garbage, just in case you were asking yourself that.